So yeah, I decided to call this return on investment, solar return on investment for churches and civic groups. So one aspect of this is, kind of the motivation. Why would a church care? Why would a church want to do this? Well, this past August, we had this headline. We have 3 500-year events in a row. 3 years with 500-year events in a row. What are the odds of that? Let's see here. So one 500-year event means 0.2%, right? 0.002. So you multiply 0.002 times 0.002 times 0.002, and that's the odds of it happening 3 times in a row, approximately.
200 billion?
What's that?
200 billion?
Yeah, right. So it's just something's going on. What's going on? Well, let's see this one. Mega disasters devastated America in 2017. It was the most expensive year. It might have contended with the year that we had Katrina. It was close. But they're expected to get worse. Let's take a look at another take on this situation here. Hopefully this is still queued up. Yeah.
The theme of this episode is very simple, that climate change plus soaring population plus globalization means that people can't live on their farms anymore in Africa. The farms cannot sustain the population.
Why am I seeing it here and not?
It's one of those keys at the top of it.
That's an automatic source search. It's going to stop on HTM1 and say on. Yeah.
But
I don't know
why is it showing what I'm seeing on the screen, on this screen?
Good question. We can listen. That's too close our eyes.
Turn the screen.
Visualize.
Look on the little screen.
Why don't you minimize that?
Yeah.
Have we got any teenagers in the room?
That would require them to use something like a phone, and that doesn't happen.
You can switch that up to switch that split.
I'm on that chain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, hand at the bottom.
Top piece.
Let's try that.
You can get,
Good, now we have nothing.
that might be good. Just sort of volunteer.
Okay. That did.
Veterans and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's try again.
That's Frank's.
Three of them.
Well,
I was really proud of myself in conceiving of this, but the implementation is always the problem.
Just the start button.
Okay.
Here we go.
Simple, that climate change plus soaring population plus globalization means that people can't live on their farms anymore in Africa. The farms cannot sustain the population here. So young people are leaving, first for the city and then for abroad. No work in the village.
And now he has no work in the city either, so he's going further away.
This huge mass migration of people out of Africa, out of the developing world, that's being hammered most by climate change. Climate change driven in part by our emissions. Is it our emissions that are impoverishing your country?
La grande responsabilité de la pollution de la planète relève de l'Occident.
So this
It's
was
110 degrees Fahrenheit. Is this weather normal for this time of year? Of the young men you grew up with, how many are still here in the village? All these nationals, whether it's Trump in America, Le Pen in Europe, our reaction to the challenge posed by this huge mass migration of people out of Africa, out of the developing world. Well, I got news for you. No wall is going to keep them out. We have a choice. We can build walls or we can build gardens. And if we don't help people build gardens here in Africa, they're going to come right over our wall.
Notre jeunesse est sans emploi. Ils vont aller ailleurs. Ou alors, notre jeunesse répondra à la première sirène de Boko Haram ou des djihadistes.
No future here. Our choice is very clear right now. We have to manage the unavoidable in order to avoid the unmanageable. We need to get the message out about climate change now. We're living right on the edge.
Have they ever heard of this thing called climate change?
Okay, let's see. Okay. So, like I said last time, all weather events are affected by climate change because the environment in which they occur is warmer and moister than it used to be. So we don't know if a particular event is caused by climate change, but all events are being affected. This is the past 12,000 years of temperature, and you see this J at the end here. And the J is this right here for the past 135 years. This is our current distribution of gas emissions by sector. In the U.S., it's largely transportation and electric power. Now, you know, they've separated this out differently than our lunchtime discussion. This is direct agriculture. Certainly, agriculture has effects in transportation, in electric power, in industry. So certain components of these over here would be attributed to agriculture. So, and this is, you know, Arkansas, we've got this little blip due to the Turk plant, the coal-fired power plant that we had come online. This is the U.S. Electric power has been surpassed by transportation recently. This is the local effect that, you know, we've got flooding in places that we didn't used to have flooding. That's right, in Fayetteville. This was the baseline. Current policy trajectory, this is where we need to be. We're far off from where we need to be. SWEPCO, which is the utility for Northwest Arkansas and these areas, is nearly 90% coal and natural gas at this point. They're hoping by 2030-40 to have more solar and wind, but they're still going to be 67% coal and gas. Okay, this is Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. We recently, well, we had hail damage on our roof. Lucky us, because we got a new roof out of it from the insurance company. The best time to put a solar system is after you've had a new roof, because the solar system will protect the roof, the roof that remains. And if the roof is on the verge of needing to be replaced and you put a solar system on it, it's a pain in the neck to take the solar system off to deal with the roof. So we got a new roof. Now's the time. Now's the opportunity. You know, if it's within the past 5 or so years and the roof is in good shape, you should have a good chance anyway. But you see the old roof color up there. I took this the first day that they were working on the roof. I deliberately led us to choose a white roof because it's more reflective. In this class of shingle, This was the only color that's Energy Star rated because it reflects more light. White roofs reflect more light than dark roofs. So out of like 20 different color choices, that's the only one that was Energy Star rated. So, you know, you might save 10% on your cooling requirement just by having a white roof, just by having a reflective roof. The Omni Center put solar on their roof recently. It's something that they've wanted to do for a long time, but it's just recently come into a good pricing, you know, an attractive pricing situation. And so, of course, when you do that, you have to have a party.
Yeah.
We had a party. Yes,
Is
David.
putting a solar on a metal roof less expensive than a shingle roof, or vice
Yeah.
versa, or just?
You don't need as, you know, with a raised seam, it's simpler. There are advantages, but when I looked into a metal roof for Good Shepherd, I was told it would be 3 times as costly.
Right.
So, you know, $55,000
Right.
or $155,000.
Yeah.
You know, that became the question. And so we went with the 55. At Grace, about 10 years ago, we, you know, when we were in worshiping in Fort Smith, living in Van Buren, we got this. This was the first system in Arkansas on a church. So it was a little less than 17 kilowatts.
What year was that?
2010. You know, it was when the rebate was available. So that's 17 kilowatts, and that provides about 4% of that church's electricity. I think. Anyway, but this little system produced 33 megawatt hours in a few years. That's a lot of energy savings. Here's another view of the Omni Center as the solar panels were going on the roof, and another view of the party. So we had a good party. This is Good Shepherd viewed from above. We're planning an 80 kilowatt system, which is a good size system that is approximately our entire electric demand, or consumption, I guess. As Mac pointed out, the difference between consumption and demand last time. This roof is what we were looking at before. This is another roof that's good, and this is a roof that's good. You need to have a south-facing roof, basically. And so the system will look something like this. So these are southeast facing, and that's southwest facing. And unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of other choices for south-facing roofs. Now this is an all-in cost. That's both the cost of the solar panels and the cost of installation. So it's going to be about a little less than $110,000 for an 80 kilowatt system, which to me, that's cheap. You know, $1.36 a watt. We're getting prices way down. Now I got the solar panels at wholesale, so you know, at about 50 cents a watt. And we're getting a lot of donated time from the installation company. So, but still, $1.36, that's close to what utilities pay for ground-mounted systems. That's really something. So our estimated mean monthly production over time, the pattern will look something like that. Which is fortunate because our electric bills peak in July also. And this is Pika Solar's offices. That's our system for our home. and Richter Solar guys putting the system on. This is our home, you know, an aerial shot from the home. Pica Solar, if we have the opportunity, we would fill those 18 slots in with Pica Solar panels. This is what we expect to see at our church. Zero energy bills. This, you know, so at home in 12 months we've generated about 20 megawatt hours. And this is the production pattern. Individual panels translated into equivalent trees planted. I showed this last time also. The International Energy Agency is constantly predicting flat demand for solar, and it's constantly just going through the roof, actual demand internationally. This is, again, the storage costs have come down 75% from 2010 to 2016. So 75% in just a few years. The cost of storage systems, battery storage, have come down. Okay, so here's the actual demand. Mac mentioned, you know, needing 2 years of demand. I've been telling people 13 months. You know, we want to get 13 months demand. 2 years would be better, but when I ask for 13 months, usually people are hesitant. So I go for what I think I need. But so we have 2 meters. And so the cost at the meter for each month over the past 13 months is there. So we got meter 1 and meter 2. We can aggregate the meters, which means you come to an agreement with your utility to put the numbers together and be able to take your solar system. So no matter how we plug the solar system in, whichever meter we plug it into, it will get full credit for it for a year. So you see our peak, you know, is in July and August, which is when the production will peak also. The key number is this over here, $11,000 per year is the potential savings in electricity, because that's how much we use. This is the meter, you know, the connect charge for the 2 meters, right there. But this is the key number, $11,000 per year in electricity costs. So this is our consumption pattern, both in kilowatt hours and in cost for the 2 meters. And again, you know, our electricity costs are about $11,000 a year. So this is kind of how the system pencils out. So we've got installation cost of, you know, just installation only of $68,800. Cost of the modules was about $40,000. Add those 2 numbers together, $109,000. Annual project benefits are about $11,000. So you can see right there it's close to 10% a year in benefit, return on investment. And this is an actual system that's ongoing right now. It hasn't been installed yet. We've signed contracts. And we got the modules. So this is what's possible right here, right now, in Arkansas, real money. So within, you know, roughly 10 years of simple calculation, you have the system paid off, and it's warranted for 15 more years.
How many modules did you have to buy to get a wholesale, that wholesale break you talked about? Was that on like a container load or something?
I happen to know somebody who was ordering 10 megawatts,
Uh-huh.
and so we were able to buy 80 kilowatts out of that.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, that's
Right.
0.1% of what he ordered. You know, I happen to know when an order was going in.
Yeah.
But even at retail, you'd still have an 8% return.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts, right?
Right, right. And so, you know, the person donating the money to the church gets, you know, whatever the value of their donation in terms of tax write-off. So the church can't benefit in terms of tax benefits, but the individual can. You know, and Frank gave a little bit more complex way of doing that, but even the simple way of doing it, it makes sense. It makes sense today, now, in Arkansas.
Terry, how much square footage does your church have?
Square footage?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Heated and cooled space.
Yeah, heated and cooled space.
I probably should know that. I'm a new building and grounds chair. I haven't been in the position very long.
No worries. I'll check with you later.
I'll just show you the pictures. So, you know, this is the fellowship hall now. It used to be the sanctuary. The sanctuary is over here. This is like a recreation building, the Alton Center. So, how big is that?
I'd say it's 20,000 square feet counting the parking spaces.
Okay.
Giving them each 10 foot.
Yeah. That's probably pretty close. 20,000 square feet. All right. Okay, my favorite bumper sticker again. And even if it's a hoax, we'd have energy independence, green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water, clean air, healthy children. Gosh, I sure hope it's not a big hoax, because these are the only benefits that are left. So, yes.
Terry, question. So the church member who donated the funds or partial funds, the tax benefits that you're speaking of were just from what any person who would donate.
Right.
It's not
Charitable
that they took
contribution.
it's not that they took the federal tax credit.
No.
Okay. Got it.
So, you know, what is it? You know, it was 39% last year. It's 37% for the top, you know, the top tax slab though.
Okay.
That's what I have for a presentation. I've got lots of videos to reinforce the point. Yes.
Just within the past 2 weeks, we had a salesman meet with us at our home, and my daughter had heard him make a pitch that today you can put solar panels on your house and it will be covered in the savings that you have from your electric bill. So you will not be out any money and will eventually save money. Well, when he met with us, it turns out that they, on paper, that it would take 25 years for the payment to come to be paid off in the assumed savings. A lot more than we kind of anticipated when we first heard it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see projections about assuming an increase in price in electricity over time. And you'll see that often plugged into a formula. And you'll see, what other tricks have I seen? To me, the point is this. Churches stand for something. what do they stand for? Let's, let's take a look at this one's what it is. That's not the one. Okay, get that one turned off. So, what do I do? So this is Syria. The point I'm trying to make is there are other reasons than economics.
I've spent
Economics
decades
are
reporting
good,
on the Middle East,
but this is what's
but I
going
have
on
to
in
say,
our world.
the events in Syria these days are some of the most heartbreaking I have ever seen. I thought I knew how it all started with protests over government repression and widespread poverty in early 2011. But then I met Farah Nassif, a young Syrian refugee living here in Washington, D.C.
They are talking about drought when I was young.
She said I couldn't understand the Civil War if I didn't understand what happened in the drought. This drought was the worst in Syria's modern history and happened in the 4 years just before the revolution. Over 1 million people were displaced, and this drought was part of a trend. According to a study by the U.S. government's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, over the last 40 years, climate change has caused the Mediterranean region to dry out, resulting in longer, more severe droughts. The places in red are getting the worst of it, and Syria is right at the epicenter. I also come across a confidential U.S. diplomatic cable written 2 years before the revolution. It contains some dire predictions. A UN official stationed in Syria feared the drought would throw the entire country into chaos. But can there really be a connection between a drought and a civil war?
Climate change is now well understood to be a major national security issue and a source of stress on a number of the underlying causes of conflict.
How much do you feel that stress in northern Syria?
It's very hard to quantify. However, we all know that where there is drought, where there is insecurity, when there is poverty, hunger, poor governance, repressive policies, it may make the tinder in the box more readily ignitable.
In other words, if a drought is bad enough, it can help push an already stressed society to the breaking point. Is that what happened in Syria? I learned about a family that recently fled the war and is now taking refuge here.
كان عندنا أراضي زراعية. كان في الأمطار كانت حيل زينة كانت أمطار سنوية حيل زينة تمطر علينا بمطر بهاي كانت الأراضي حيل مروية بعدين فجأة صار فيها الجفاف هذا. أرض قحلة صارت ملحة. شوفي احنا كنا قاعدين بالدوام وعم نحكي انه في قحل وفي جفاف لازم الحكومة تساعد بس ما حدا عم يستجيب بالعكس اجوا اخذونا على التحقيق وعلى الاساس يوم والثاني وبالاخير اعتقلونا لمدة شهرين. وبعدين طلعنا على اساس انه ما حدا يحكي نهائيا. مع اول صيحة الله اكبر احنا كلياتنا قمنا للثورة. مباشرة.
How many other Syrians, I wonder, have a similar story to tell?
So they went from regular rains to 4 and 5 years drought.
The answer is on the other side of that border. I'm told there's a rebel commander leading a group of failed farmers turned fighters. That's where I'm headed.
And this is a drought that hasn't happened for 1,500 years.
the border, the signs of war are everywhere. John, nice to meet you. The commander tells me he used to be a cotton farmer, but when the drought hit, he had to turn to smuggling to feed his family.
الزراعة أخي مزارع فاشل الثاني فاشل الثالث فاشل لا.
When they write the history of this revolution, how important will the drought be?
أنت لما الأرض قاحلة حكم الله ما تقدر بس لما تشوف إنه أنت محكوم من الرب هالحكم والأب مطيق ظهر بدك تصير تفوت جوعان فلما تسمع إنه ما حدا استجاب بدك تزعل فإحنا صار معنا الأمور هاي كلها فقمنا على الثورة وثورة حرية ثورة جياع.
It's time to turn back. It's dangerous to linger around here, even this close to the border. Later, I'll find out that this town was taken over by Al-Qaeda and that 100 people were executed. Droughts are nothing new. Neither are brutal dictators, religious conflicts, or people's desire for freedom. But for the Syrians who lived through it, the drought will be forever seared into their memories and forever shape their feelings toward the regime they now seek to overthrow. And the rest of us should take notice. This volatile part of the world is only getting hotter and drier. More droughts may mean more people displaced, more lives uprooted, perhaps more war. And we'd be very foolish to think it won't affect us.
So we've got a situation, and it's this. You know, we've got evidence that what we're doing is causing drought in dry places, and 500-year floods 3 years in a row in wet places. What do we stand for?
So St. Margaret's, where I go to church, we're considering putting up solar panels. We're probably not going to have a huge array at first, but there will be a return on investment that'll be money that we don't have to pay the utility company. The sun will be giving that to us. And it's not going to save a whole lot of greenhouse gas emissions, at least our little array won't. But we're doing it mostly just to show that we care and to be part of the solution and to have a message as much as anything. So the return on investment isn't that we don't have to pay an electric bill or pay a lower electric bill. The return is that we have a message.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What are we about? What?
It's interesting that when we buy cars, we think about status. We pay a heck of a lot more for one car versus another. And all we're doing is going from point A to point B. But when we buy electricity, for some reason, it has to be, and some of this is in the regulations, it has to be for the lowest cost available. There's no qualitative assessment.
And in this case, it's both. You know, it's both the lowest cost energy we have access to, and it makes a statement about what we believe in. Our pastor is the leader of a group called Canopy in Northwest Arkansas, which has to do with resettling refugees. And the Catholic Church is a leader in resettling refugees. Making that connection, you know, I tried hard to make that connection with him, and he was an easy sell. He was on board right away. But some people don't believe there's a connection, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show there is a connection. There's a connection between what we do here and what goes on there. And there being sometimes our very own backyard. You know, sometimes it's the flood that affects us. So it undoubtedly affects people in Africa more and sooner than it does people in the U.S. But we're not isolated. You know, we're just not that isolated anymore. The comment from the fellow in Syria was, this is a revolution of poor people, of hungry people in Syria. So people get hungry enough, they'll leave their home. Both of these video segments were from hour-long programs. Didn't think you wanted to sit through 2 hours long worth of videos, so instead 2 minutes and 6 minutes, I was hoping would give you the flavor. But there are lots of shows, there are lots of hours of video that you can help explain connections like the connection your church is making. So, anyway, soapbox. I don't need a soapbox. Questions? How do we make that connection? How do we demonstrate to people the connection? You know, this roof is very visible. There's a fair amount of traffic on this road over here, and it's a very tall roof. So it's an advertisement, and that was. You know, what's the value of the advertisement? What's the value of an in-your-face solar system that you see every time you drive by?
I think it makes an impact on me. I mean, we were in Europe last spring and driving in a very rural area of the Czech Republic, and you'd go through little village after little village, and there were solar panels on every roof and every farmhouse.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't Germany. And, you know, this is a country where really 70% of their economy still is tourism, and yet, and I don't know what kind of incentives they might have, but I wouldn't think it would be to the extent that Germany did. And, you know, I just thought, wow, you know, they're really a lot more forward thinking than we are.
So Terry, if your south side had not been street facing, would you have considered you know, a parking lot array or something else that would be visible?
That's a good point. You know, anywhere you've got a parking lot, there's the opportunity for shade. Where do you think people are going to park? Out in the sun?
They're going to get
or in the shade?
late.
Right. You know, yeah, any parking lot is an opportunity.
And the cost would be?
It's really not that much more. It is more costly to put up a parking lot shade than to put it on a roof. But it's not that much more. And you get the benefit of the shade. You know, here you get, I mean, we're going to take advantage of the shade too. It'll lower our electricity consumption just by being on the roof, on those south-facing roofs. Yes?
What's the optimal angle of a roof in Arkansas?
Roughly your latitude, in terms of the angle. Probably a little less than your latitude. So what's our latitude here is 35, 36 degrees, something like that. So maybe 30 degrees slope is good in Arkansas. So if you have a roof, these are 22 degrees, the slopes here. But rather than have, flush mounting is the way to go because you can put a lot more. Flush mounting means it's parallel with the roof, that you're not trying to angle its ideal angle because then you cast a shadow. And so you have less space that you can cover with the solar panels and less benefit that you get. So flush mounting is the way to go. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, have you ever, how many systems?
One, we did tilt.
Tilt, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's ground mount, that's a different story. But ground mount being, out in a field somewhere, like
35 degrees, yeah, you can put it at the ideal angle.
Right. But the way to go in Arkansas is to, if you have a tilted roof, just go with flush mount.
If I decided to install something that shielded my windows from the summer sun.
Yeah, you could do that.
Use the solar panels as the...
As the shield? Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the right kind of thinking. Think of multiple benefits. Find ways that you get multiple benefits out of it. But
we discovered with ours on our church, we had a straight line windstorm come through a couple months after we put the solar panels up. Bill and I rushed over there the next morning to see what the damage was. The roof of the building next door had been completely removed. Our solar panels were fine. All we did was lose one downspout from a gutter, but...
Yeah, solar panels are much stronger than shingles. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I found that too. So anyway, we're after time now. But yeah, I'd love to have you come over to our house anytime you're in Fayetteville.
Thank you, Terry.